Welcome back into another episode of George in the Jungle, presented by Remington Tavern. Remington Tavern can be found at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can check them out on Instagram at RemyTav Cincy. That's REMITAV Cincy with a Y, or follow them on Facebook. And with that, George, just wanted to say to anybody watching, we will be doing the aftermath. Chad is on his way home. We're going to be doing the aftermath at 10:30. But for now, this is George in the Jungle. So, but George,
with me for a little bit.
You were at the game. The Bearcats pulled one out, 85-75. What were your thoughts walking out of Fifth Third tonight?
Hey, it's good to be playing good basketball again, and exciting basketball. That was a great game. That was a fun game to watch. It had a little bit of everything, fast-paced, and I give UC a lot of credit. I mean, up 6 at halftime, but you know, when things started going wonky in that second half, they got it together, and you know, they got killed in the paint in the first half. They fixed that in the second half. You know, the rebounding battle, they definitely reversed that from the last time they faced Utah. And Utah is a big team. It's tough to do what UC did, and they got two great offensive rebounds down the stretch that helped immensely. And really the job they did when you know, Gabe Madsen started firing everything from all over the place and making half of it. And then they stuck Josh Reed on him, and they did a really good job. They started switching screens a little more on him, and making, you know, a couple times it was Aziz left, you know, throwing his arms in the air, trying to get in his way out there at the three-point line, because I felt like they needed to start switching on those screens with Madsen, because he was just getting the ball and firing. And it was tough to fight through some of those screens. They weren't giving them a lot of room. So I thought they really, really fixed that issue in the final 4 minutes, which is something we didn't see them, or at least it didn't feel like they were doing that during that losing streak. So it's nice to see them get back on track. And Jizzle's back, by the way.
Man, is he ever. He finishes 25 points on the night, 10 of 15 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, hit all 3 of his free throws, 6 assists, 2 rebounds. He was phenomenal.
Yeah, and he got it going early too. In fact, I was really surprised. He had 7 of the first 11 points, the first 7 points for UC. And they reached the first time out, and he came out of the game. And I was a little PO'd about that, because I felt like he was really in command of his game tonight. But he wasn't out very long, and he got back in and kind of picked up where he left off. And you know, when Utah made that run and kind of went on a streak a little bit there in the second half, Jizzle helped settle things down offensively and made a couple of mid-range jumpers, and then, you know, a layup, and that one move he had in the lane. That was probably later in the game, but that was phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, the whole arena just goes woo when he buckled that defender and then went in for that layup. That was worth the price of admission, seeing that.
The crossover that he had, where he put a guy on skates at the top of the key and then goes and lays it in. Yeah, it was a thing of beauty.
Hell of a play.
Yeah, say what you want about this team, but it seems that the turning point has been sending Dan Skillings to the bench and elevating Day Thomas into the starting lineup. And here you are now on a 3-game winning streak, which, by the way, is the longest winning streak that you've had since you joined the Big 12 in conference play.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? That is totally crazy. Yeah, you know, and when UC buckled down and you know, they probably gave up more points than you would like to in a normal game, but in the flow of this game, I thought when push came to shove down the stretch, the defense locked down pretty good. I mean, they had some really, really, really good defensive possessions down the stretch. And you know, Utah went into panic mode and just started launching threes left and right. And I don't know what they ended up with, 12 or 13 of them. I can't remember, but
13.
they had it. Yeah, they had a decent night shooting from three, but late in the game, that wasn't the case. UC did a much better job defending them and just forcing them to force things up, so to speak. And yeah, I just, Tyler Betsy gave him a couple big threes in the first half. Josh Reed gave him three big threes in the first half. I mean, that last one, and he was somewhat guarded and pretty deep. And that was just like heat check city right there, and he drained it. And it's like, yeah, he's on fire, all right. He's feeling it. So once again, he was big for him. And when they did lock down defensively down the stretch, Dan was out of the game, and they had Josh Reed in the game, and they had Jizzle in the game, and they had Day Day in the game. So, something to be said for that, because quite honestly, Dan had his moments like he does in some games. He had some really good moments tonight and had a really good shift there in the second half for a short period of time. But he was not back to his old self tonight. I felt like he, may have been the one guy you would say probably didn't live up to the standard. Aziz in the first half, maybe not so much in the second half. I thought he played much better. I thought he rebounded better. He ended up with a double-double, I believe. And he defended well out on the floor. It was kind of crazy watching him, having to go out there when they did these switches and play a little defense out front. But I thought he did a good job with it.
Yeah, Z's finished with 10 and 10. He finished plus 14. Dan finished minus 6 for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, he had some issues. Even early on, he had a couple of quick turnovers when he was in the game. It's just like, he does some things. He'll make a splash play, and then the next time down the floor, kind of try to force it a little bit, it feels like. And I think he's still forcing himself to find the level of play he wants to reach, and he's kind of got to dial that back and not force it.
Yeah. Again, for those of you joining us, this is not the aftermath. This is our regular Tuesday night George in the Jungle, where we do all of the Cincinnati sports. Chad's in transition because he does the post-game presser, and he's on his way home. So we'll be doing the aftermath. That'll be around 10:30.
Yeah, when I left the arena, he was still working on his computer down there on press row, I saw.
He finished the presser shortly before we started this show. So,
yeah, I'll tell you what, Wes got on the radio pretty quick too. By the time I got back to the car, he was already sitting down and starting to talk.
Yeah, everybody started fairly quick tonight. I guess if you were trying to be nitpicky tonight, kind of going back to your earlier point, Dan, I agree. He seemed a little out of sorts tonight. He's 3 of 10 is not great. He still has not found his shot. Only 9 points there. He did have 6 rebounds, 4 offensive, which that's getting back to where we want him to be.
Right.
2 fouls, 2 turnovers, also not good, but he did have a steal. So
yeah,
I don't know.
6 rebounds came in the first half. They're like I said, and that's why, God bless Wes for putting in the guys who were producing tonight when they needed them down that stretch, and that's what he did. And my God, what does he end up minutes like? God, it seemed like he played more than 29, but that was the most on the team. They wrung him out as hard as they could, man. It was like a wash rag. They just drained him.
Well, because when I don't know, the 3 or 4 times it felt like we saw Lovering just drive right down the middle for a 2-hand flush where he just splits the lane and goes in. That was disgusting.
That was especially trouble, if I remember correctly, early in the second half when they came out of the locker room and went on that run, and there were a couple plays like that in a row. And UC got that corrected. I mean, I give them credit. And they also got corrected the dominance, because early in the game and in that first half, they were catching UC because, Utah's a long team, a tall, long team. And when you got Jizzle and Day Day in there together, they were able to get some mismatches down there low where they would bully in. And everybody got bullied in that first half on UC's team defensively. Inside, like Reed got back down, Aziz got back down, Jizzle did, CMOS did, Day Day did. It was, I mean,
Dylan.
the points in the paint in the first half was something crazy, like 24-8. And I think UC pretty much reversed that trend in the second half. So whatever, all the complaining we've done about the coaches and lack of adjustments and all that. I mean, tonight it seemed like they did that in spades. I mean, whatever the hell they went to work on the fix, it worked.
22-6 was points in the paint in the first half.
Yeah, it was very lopsided. It was very, very disappointed when you're sitting there and watching it possession after possession. But again, credit to UC for figuring it out and fixing that. And they did a much better job. And I thought they played really hard tonight. I thought they played really, really hard on that defensive end.
Well, you also have to give credit to Cincinnati for figuring out how to rebound again, just in general. Last time when they played, they lost the rebound battle, I believe, 41-23, if I remember correctly. And this one, Cincinnati wins 41-29. Wes even mentioned they had the 41-23 like up on the wall for all the guys to see as they were going out onto the floor tonight. So
well, I'm glad they did, because it was much better, and down the stretch when it counted and they tracked down those loose balls, that was huge. And so good for them fixing that. I think they, I think when they were trying to fix the offense and they're like, we need to get into the offense sooner, which I totally agree with, but it was almost like they abandoned the whole rebounding part of that equation to make sure you get the ball first before you get your butt down the floor. And so I'm glad that they found, more of a happy medium on that, and they're back to rebounding the basketball. And they're still pushing it pretty good. I love the pace they're playing at now. I
agree.
Love the, there were some possessions tonight where it still looks stale. You're going to get those in the course of a game, probably with any team, but where they were having to force a shot or two at the end of a shot clock. But for the most part, moving better, passing better, getting into it quicker. I love what I've seen. Now, we'll see what happens, when they take the next step this weekend, because it's going to be a whole different ball game against them. But at least they're back to winning those games that we think they should win in the Big 12.
Yeah, Gabe Madsen lost his mind tonight. 10 of 26, 8 of 22 from three. Those stats are absurd.
He was just coming down, chucking down the stretch. Like, he got the ball and would try to work off a screen, and if he didn't, he threw it up anyway.
But he finishes with 28. No free throws in this one. That was where he kind of killed Cincinnati in the last game.
Yeah.
So good on them for not leaving their feet, not falling into the trap of
and that was nice down the stretch too, where they had fouls to give, right?
Yeah.
That was nice too.
But were you one of the ones booing? I already know the answer to this question.
No,
were you one of the ones? Were you surprised to hear the crowd booing Mason Madsen?
Oh, that was funny. Yeah, that was funny. Someone there was a sign before the game that had like Kelsey brothers greater than Madsen brothers, which was kind of funny. I think that found its way out on the court. I think the Bearcat mascot might have had that at one time, but that was funny. But yeah, those boos at the end with those kids coming in, and that was funny. But I did not boo, because I was more worried about the game and all that and finishing this damn thing. I wasn't like clicked in on what the Madsen brothers were doing, other than Mason firing up every time he touched the ball.
Gabe was the one. Mason
was the one who came in. Gabe, the man bug. Sorry.
Yeah. That's fine. I don't know. I just didn't understand booing Mason Madsen. As long as it was done tongue in cheek, in jest, and as long as it wasn't like a malicious.
I don't think it was totally malicious at all. No, and I think if I'm him and we beat you guys a couple weeks ago, then we're back in your arena, I'm probably expecting it.
He was one of the ones who stuck around for Wes after the whole John Brandon era and all of that.
No, that's true. That is true. I didn't boo him, but I didn't like the boos early in the second half either, when Utah went on that run, and oh my God, the Bearcats got booed again tonight at that point. And it was ugly, but it's like but I can't say a word because I had a lot of people around me doing it.
Well, it was a great win. Where do you feel that this team is this enough to propel them?
First of all, now I've been talking about what they have to do to get in, right? But I don't believe it's going to happen. I haven't taken that leap.
I'm not even that far down the road yet. I'm just going to ask you if this is enough to propel them to be more than just a puncher's chance going to play in Ames on Saturday against a struggling Iowa State Cyclones team.
Well, yeah, because they got a pulse now. Anytime you got a pulse, you got a chance. And you can get off the mat and do something. They have gotten off the mat. Are they good enough to take this, to a place like Iowa State and win? Probably not, but they have a chance. And that's what you have in the Big 12 when you go on these road games. You want to have a chance. It doesn't mean you will win, but they are playing much better now, I think. And I know the competition isn't top of the Big 12. They played these last 3 games, but by God, they weren't top of the Big 12 when UC played them a couple weeks ago on the road and got thrashed. I mean, this is a completely different brand of UC basketball we're seeing than what we saw in those games where they got blown out, and they got blown out at home by West Virginia. That was not the team I saw tonight that I saw a week ago Sunday in that same arena.
Well, it looks like Iowa State got it back on track a little bit tonight as they beat UCF 77-65, but they had not been doing great. They did beat TCU on Saturday, but prior to that, you lost to Kansas, you lost to Kansas State, and you lost to Arizona to close out January.
Which is something I don't think anybody expected, all of that, but
3-2 in their last 5 games. And you got
it is the Big 12, and it's hard for any team really to go through without some lull at some point in the season. You don't want it to last as long as UC's did and be as ugly as theirs was. But it's tough. Every team will go through a couple-week stretch where maybe they're not playing as well as they did a month ago. Maybe they're not playing up to their capability now. But and it's up to the coaches to find a way to get it back on track. And I hope UC has done that, and I hope Iowa State hasn't quite yet.
Well, Iowa State did get Momcilovic back, and that's a huge plus for them.
Yes.
So, although tonight he only had 3 points, take that for what you will. But we'll see. A huge. You win in Ames, which is a terribly difficult place to win, and you're able to put together not just a 3-game win streak, but a 4-game win streak after the shitstorm that was the first half of your conference play.
Right.
That's I think that's more than playing with a pulse at that point. So I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but I think you've certainly made Saturday far more interesting than it was a week and a half ago.
Oh, without question. I mean, it was. This season was, and it still is on the brink, but it was on the brink, looking like it was going to get worse a week and a half ago.
I mean, we were talking about not even NIT bound, and now you're.
But that still could be the case now.
Sure.
They are playing better. You just hope it keeps translating in the wins, and the last 3 games it has, and it's night and day though. I mean, that's what I don't get. And Jizzle's shooting much better now. That certainly helps. When you got Josh Reed's made shots these last couple of games. Betsy's made shots outside. Seamoss still isn't going. He's still struggling, and you hope the other guys keep shooting at the level they're at, and then he finds his stroke. And if that happens, they're in business.
Well, yeah, and you keep doing the things right on the. You're not going to do everything right every game. We know that. And if you did take a step back defensively tonight, in my opinion, you were able to do some of the other things better: offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, assists were up tonight. You had 16 total assists on 30 shots. You're still hitting 50%. You're still hitting 50% from three, which is 2 games in a row. You shot 10 of 20 on Saturday, Sunday. I don't even know anymore. And now you're
Saturday, I think, right? Yeah, Saturday night.
And you were 11 of 22 tonight. So that's huge.
Yeah, totally huge. 14 of 19 from the line, I'll take, especially when the opponent's 0 for 3. I mean, how about that? That doesn't happen for this UC team, or at least it didn't for a long time.
Nope. So we'll see where things settle on Saturday. I think that could be massive for this program.
Huge game now. What time's that tip off? Do you know off the top of your head? I saw it earlier.
I can check real quick here. That game tips off at 4 o'clock on ESPN2, and there is going to be a watch party at Holy Grail for the Bearcat Journal faithful. Chad will be down there, so if you are interested in joining up with Chad, feel free to link up with him at Holy Grail and say hi, hang out, watch the game together, and then we'll do our aftermath after that. So again, to the 62 of you who are in here, did want to let you know this is George in the Jungle. We will be doing the aftermath at around 10:30. But here, if you want to go get yourself a drink because you're not interested in the rest of Cincinnati sports, here is where we transition to some of those other topics that you may not want to listen to if you're here for it.
Does that include me? Can I get a drink?
No, I need you.
I got to refill this.
But in any case,
and I should mention, and they did, someone mentioned earlier, maybe it will take Chad a little while to get home because of the darn roads, but 75 wasn't bad when I was on that, but those side roads and stuff are, it's treacherous. Oh, I'm walking into the arena tonight, and there's an old guy in front of me, and like it was really coming down, right? And it's slick. I'm being careful because I had that back surgery. It's like last thing I need to do is slip and fall. So I'm following this guy who's older than me, this older gentleman in front of me, and a guy comes up, a maintenance worker, and he's putting salt on the sidewalk. We didn't see this dude, and he pops out, and he's like just looking down, throwing it on the sidewalk and tossing it. He tossed a handful of salt right in this dude's face in front of him.
Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, no.
He was fine. To the old boy's credit, he just laughed. And the guy's like, oh, my God, I'm sorry. The poor maintenance guy felt so bad, but the guy got blasted. You ever done that with a salt truck in front of you in your car?
Yeah.
Or they come by and just blast your car with that salt. I hate that. This dude got it right in the face.
More times than I like to admit have I been behind a salt truck where that's happened before. But in any case, pitchers and catchers have reported to Arizona for your Cincinnati Reds, George.
Yeah.
And we already have pitchers who are injured because
I think you go right there.
Who's surprised?
Oh my God, I couldn't believe it when I saw that.
I could actually because
I can too.
This makes me
we did. We talked about this last week. With all these pitchers and all this stuff, somebody's going to get hurt and something's going to be wrong. And then that's it happens so much to pitchers now, it's crazy. But this is a big one.
This is why we should have launched the training group of the Cincinnati Reds into the sun and started fresh with a whole new batch. I do not understand what they're doing. That said, Rhett Lauder is going to be brought back slowly as he is nursing an elbow. And we'll see. He's got a plan apparently already because of course he is. But that's a little concerning considering he finished 1.17 ERA last season for the month or so he was up. And you were excited to see if he can crack into the starting rotation. Now, I don't know that he's going to have the opportunity, if he's going to have enough time to have the opportunity.
I don't either. I don't know how far the setback is. You definitely don't overwork somebody who reported a sore elbow. Now, it sounds like it was very early on, and he's going to be throwing and stuff, and maybe even tomorrow. I don't know. That's going to be interesting to see. But anytime it's an elbow, you know what we're all thinking, and it's, that ligament in there. But they said no structural damage and all that business, with the testing and all that. But I've heard that before, and
Yeah.
Boy, that's tough. But they got to let him take his time, and if he comes back at the end of April or May or whatever, okay, do not rush this guy, especially when they have other people on hand that can kind of hold the fort. Thank God they've got enough. Well, they've got the amount of starting pitching they have. We'll see what they're down to by the end of camp, because they haven't even started yet, and they're already kind of down one.
He says it's nothing crazy, so we'll see. I'm cautiously optimistic, but nervous all the same, because it is something to be concerned about. And you also have Spencer Steer, he apparently had shoulder soreness late in the season that he is still dealing with. And that's why he's going to be looking at a DH role in most of his early stuff here in the spring. And we'll see at what point he ends up getting out on the field. Are you nervous at all in regards to?
Hell yeah, I'm nervous about that. I mean, because if it's surgery, then, I don't know what part of the shoulder or whatever, but those take a while.
This feels like Matt McClain all over again.
I know.
And truthfully, Rhett Lauder feels like Hunter Green all over again.
Like you would think if he had some of that stuff last year at the end of the season, it would have been completely figured out by now, right?
This is why I hate this medical training staff. I hate them.
I know. I don't get it. I don't get it either.
Good news is you have seen Christian Encarnacion Strand back, and he's been apparently fielding some stuff from third already, which he largely played first base and DH when he was up. So him reaching over to third again makes me nervous that Spencer Steer may not be able to go. Of course, if you're CES, you want to figure out as many different places on the field that you can help, because that's only going to allow you more playing time.
Right. And, who knows? This may be something Francona wants him to do. And so he's got a few more options, because, Candelario can play wherever. You got Marte who can play third. Steer, if he's healthy. It just gives them more options. I don't know if they can handle that position at the major league level, but I guess they're going to take a look.
And then on the flip side of the coin, you had Sal Stewart, who's been taking grounders and what have you at first base, which he largely plays third base. So you're seeing him also just kind of spread out around the field a little bit.
Yeah, and you see a little more of that these days than maybe what you used to with guys locked down. They like these guys that are a little more versatile, and everyone knows there's going to be injuries. There's going to be times when you don't have all hands on deck and you got to play a guy somewhere else. So this is a time to do it. This is a time to try it. And anyway, I mean, Sal Stewart, since they signed that guy and drafted him and signed him and brought him in, and has done absolutely nothing wrong and a lot of things right, and has been somewhat surprising. I mean, I know they had a lot of hope when they signed him and he was a high pick, but so far he's on a fast track, and I think they're just, That could be a surprise out of camp. Who knows? I doubt it, but they're going to give him a shot. Looks
Speaking
like.
of speaking of fast track, Chase Burns has looked really good in the little snippets I've seen of him throwing bullpen sessions.
Yeah,
The
and
second overall pick from a year ago.
yeah, and that's you know, I've read a lot going into the season and projections and all that, and you know, a lot of people thought he would kind of be on the same projection as Rhett Lauder, but I think the Reds maybe think he might be on a little faster track. And Rhett was on a pretty fast track. You know, you get drafted in whatever the hell it was. When was the draft last year? At the All-Star break?
Yeah.
And you're up for September. That's a hell of a fast track. Or I guess Burns was last year. It was the year before Lauder.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, he would be on a faster trajectory, but I doubt he makes it out of camp, and I don't think they're thinking that. But if he earns it, he's got that kind of pedigree. Why waste all those strikeouts in the minor leagues?
You also had a signing this week as reliever Scott Barlow comes to the Reds on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal. He pitched in 63 games for Cleveland last year, a guy that Terry Francona is obviously familiar with.
Yeah, and it's I don't even want to call it. It's more than a shot in the dark because Terry knows what he's getting. I know last year he wasn't all that great. I think he ended up getting like pretty much released in September. But if he regains the form he had before he struggled some with Cleveland last year, it's probably worth a flyer. And at this point, that's what you're getting that's out there on the market. And they've tried to remake this bullpen some, and this is just another guy that they might be able to plug in if they, and you know how these guys go up and down from these bullpen guys are just up from Louisville, back to Louisville. It's just, it gives them another one of those guys that may be able to help if and when they need it. And you know, bullpens are so that bullpens are tough to call. I mean, seriously, you know, you try to get these live arms and you try to get these guys that can bounce back in a day or two or go 2 days in a row. It's just they're volatile. They are a volatile stock when you're investing in bullpen guys.
I'm sure we'll have more news coming out of Arizona over the course of the next several weeks, but that's a just real quick look at pitchers and catchers reporting yesterday. In Bengals news, clearly playing behind an inferior offensive line is hard, as we saw Patrick Mahomes struggle the entire Super Bowl in his first loss in the biggest game of the season. You hate to see it.
Yeah, those interceptions in the first half, I mean, one was just a crappy pass, but he did have dudes in his face. One was a bad decision. He did not play like Patrick Mahomes, and yes, a lot of it had to do with him running for his life and, you know, living life like Joe Burrow. But, yeah, it was. I felt like if there was going to be a blowout in this game, it was going to be the Eagles blown out because you look at their offense, right? And Jalen Hurts probably doesn't get enough credit for what he's done, but you've got. Okay, let's start with the Chiefs. You got a banged up Isaiah Pacheco who hadn't been right all year. The running game hasn't been all that great. Say what you will about Kelsey. He did not have the kind of year that you expect out of him. And maybe, you know, his best days are behind him. I don't know. But he wasn't the weapon he was. Xavier Worthy came on as the season went on as a reliable weapon. But who's the other weapon? There isn't any. And then you look at the Eagles and you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, who didn't do anything, but Brown and Smith sure did. And they had too many weapons. And Kansas City's defense is, I dare say, this season was probably better than their offense or more reliable.
Baked on Goble, that's the point I was going to get to, is that Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl with a worse offensive line than Patrick Mahomes had by spades, George. It's not even comparable when you're talking about Trey Hopkins, Hakeem Adeniji, and Isaiah Prince, especially Isaiah Prince, who I believe had like a 2.4. It was his PFF score, if I'm not mistaken, from I don't know if that was the Super Bowl or the playoffs as a whole. I imagine it was
The Bengals didn't win that Super Bowl either, right?
Correct. But
okay.
Man.
Yeah, I know. No, you know what? Here's the thing, and we're all caught up in this chase and
T
and
Trey.
You know where these games are won?
In the trenches.
Look at the brotherly shove. Did Kansas City have a chance to stop that? When you got a guy that leg presses what Hurts does, and then he's got guys behind him that are shoving him through. I mean, come on.
I don't know if Philadelphia's defensive line could have stopped Philadelphia's offensive line on the brotherly shove.
I agree. And I've always wondered why teams didn't do that before, but my God, they've got it down to a science. And the Chiefs, if I remember right, the Chiefs did stop the Bills one time trying to pull that stunt, but it's the way Philly does it. And God bless Kelsey for doing it when it started out and having to be under that pile. He hated that play, I think.
Real quick, Hunter, thanks for the donation. It says late to the party, but oh well. Josh Reed is the hero Cincinnati needed. Hunter,
great games.
I know you're late. We're doing George in the Jungle here. We'll be starting up with Chad here in a little, depending on when Chad gets here. Sometime around 10 minutes or so, we'll start the aftermath. So we'll be doing a separate show for that. So stay tuned.
Hopefully Northern Kentucky cleared the roads. I take the first exit, so I don't know what it's like further
down. In any case, we'll see what happens. Obviously, you saw Joe make the rounds during Super Bowl week, and he was beating the drum that the Cincinnati Bengals can sign everybody. They can.
I want to be interested to see how. I really am.
We have not seen the Bengals front office historically creative in regards to contracts. So
no, they've been better lately, but yeah, you're right. You're historically, yes.
I will be shocked and amazed if back in the fold next season wearing Bengals stripes, you have T. Higgins and Trey Hendrickson and, of course, Jamar Chase along with Joe Burrow. Well, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, I'll be shocked. I really will. I mean, you're looking at four guys, and I mean, depending on how they structure the contracts, but more than likely, they're going to be very close to 50% of the cap for the coming year. Depending on how they do it, and we'll see. They may be able to get a little creative, and it won't be that high of a penalty. But still, when you're talking about needing 50 players on, it's you can't make this stuff up.
Well, you start with 75 before you have cutdowns, so we'll see.
It'll be easy.
Lastly, everyone's favorite topic, MLS and FC Cincinnati. Lucho Acosta era is over, George. It is over. He has been shipped off to FC Dallas, and in exchange for $5 million. And I believe there's some players to be named later. I'm seeing something in regards to that.
Well, it sounds like he may have forced a hand here a little bit, and Cincinnati made the best deal they could and made the best of a situation that could really get ugly, and just said, let's just get in front of this thing and get it done with now. And I know they were PO'd with him not showing up on time and that kind of thing, and they're just like, screw it. And God bless them for doing that.
Well, apparently this is supposed to open up FC Cincinnati to be able to sign Evander. I don't know if he's like Madonna where he has only one name, but I've only seen him named as Evander from Portland. He is a Brazilian midfielder, finished third in MVP voting last season, and he is 26 years old. So we'll see what they're able to do with any of that.
Well, if they pull that off, they're probably much better off for it.
Say what you want about Jeff Birding, but he has a tendency to make things happen.
Yeah, that organization doesn't sit on its hands, and you have to
Nope.
give them some credit and respect for that. And when they first got into MLS and were totally outclassed, they ripped it down to the bones and said, "Okay, we're starting over and we're doing it right." Because remember, they were bringing in those guys that were from Europe and all. They needed MLS guys. They did. They needed
Yep.
guys that knew how to work it, what kind of players work in that, and what your best bang for the buck is, and that's why they went and raided Philadelphia's people, and it's worked.
Yep. So we'll see what FC Cincinnati does if they are able to get $5 million for Lucho and turn that into this Evander kid. I think that the way that the season ended, we talked about this last week. The way that the season ended, you had to do something. You had to switch some things up because it was
Right.
a monumental fall off, and it was they couldn't score.
Yeah, it was obvious something went wrong during the season last year. It was crazy. It was similar to what the Bearcats went through for a while there.
Man.
I can't explain that one either.
Well, in any case, what you got for local hoops for high school, George?
Wyoming's no longer undefeated. Aiken is. And let's see, who are the top seeds? St. X and Centerville are the top seeds in this district of high school basketball here in Southwest Ohio. And that'll start next Monday, the tournaments begin, and Kentucky's the following week. And so that's what you got going on there.
All right.
So it's back to the Bearcats. And first of all, what do you think the number will be at Iowa State with the Bearcats and the Cyclones
when it opens?
Yeah, I have no idea. I whatever it is, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm taking Iowa State. I'm betting Iowa State because right now I'm on a roll. No, I bet on Utah tonight.
I know.
I did not bet against the Bearcats all season, right? So I bet against them at Central Florida, and they won, right? I lost my bet. I didn't care. That's why I did it. BYU, I got a bet in on BYU. Lost that. Bearcats won. Same thing tonight. Now, this was my bets have gotten progressively smaller because the Bearcats are playing. But if I have to bet the other team and they keep winning, I'll do it. I'm going to do it.
I feel like your donation idea was probably a better idea than the betting and just donating.
It's going to work out to be cheaper if they keep winning.
Well, you could at least write off the donations that you were donating to something.
True. I could have.
Instead of just burning money in the casino.
I could have. So yeah, this is a Costanza thing. So there, like most guys, there was probably a while where I did bet a lot of games and all this. I don't do it that much anymore, but every now and then I'll see a Bengals line or something that stands out to me. So the reason I did this is, and I'm telling you, bowl season too, I have not won a bet since like October in sports. Now, I didn't bet a whole lot, but that's got to be, I don't know, 5 to 10 bets. And so it's like, what the hell? So I'm like, okay, I've got to use this to my advantage. So right now I'm using it to get UC on this winning streak, and it seems to be working.
Well, for me,
I'm sure it's just coincidence, and we're going to find out when I bet Iowa State on Saturday what happens.
For me, it's been just wearing these shoes.
Good for you. You got something in. So you're superstitious too.
This streak, I wore them, and then I also wore them for the Xavier game. So
please keep wearing them. I mean, I just like this stupid hat right here. This thing powered through that college football playoff season. Like it powered. I wore this. Couldn't lose in this hat. Hadn't worked out so well for basketball, but it worked tonight. You know, and I'm glad they won at home tonight because I had to miss Saturday's game. Had the grandkids, so I was not going to go to the game. I watched, and they're there. I'm not there, and they win. So I'm like, God, if I go tonight and they lose, then maybe it is me. But I'll keep betting against them as long as this streak goes. I hope I'm still betting against them in late March.
All right. Well, I guess that's going to wrap it up here for us on George in the Jungle. Thank you to all of you who joined us live here on the show. Be sure to check out the aftermath coming up after this. Shout out, as always, to Remington Tavern for sponsoring us here. You can find them at 8892 Glendale Milford Road, 45140, where they have their daily happy hour from 3 to 7 p.m., $5 bourbon whiskey Wednesdays, bottle cap bonanza Thursdays from 7 to 9 p.m. You can find them on Instagram at RemyTavCincy or follow them on Facebook. But with that, check us out on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. here from the Cincy Light Studios on the Bearcat Journal Twitch and YouTube channels, where we talk all of your Cincinnati sports.
Thank you, Aaron.